In every heart, there's a story we never told the night that changed us. The love that hurt enough to make us real again. This is one of those stories. A story about pain, redemption, and the strange sweetness that only comes after we've tasted bitterness. You're listening to Calm Mind Journal. Tonight, let's walk through the taste of life. On the western edge of Los Angeles, where the palms lean into ocean wind and night-lit windows look like constellations lowered to street level, she stands beneath a flickering exit sign and pretends her hands aren't shaking. Hazel Grace has learned to breathe through the noise. The trick, she once told herself, is not to fight it. Let the bass thud like distant thunder. Let the chatter spill and crash. Let laughter cut like glass and then dull into sea foam. Somewhere inside that weather, she carves a small, secret space and sits in it like a quiet passenger. Tonight, the bar is called the Atrium. Mirrored ceiling, velvet booths, a chandelier that wants to be a galaxy. Men and women in tailored black drift between low tables, their voices a braid of ambition and boredom. Deals flirt with promises, promises flirt with lies. Hazel is dressed in a satin slip and a long black coat that hides more than it reveals. The coat belongs to the version of her who always leaves early. The satin belongs to the version who sometimes doesn't. At the far end of the room, a bartender curls a flame under an orange peel, and the room smells for a second like winter. Hazel thinks of her father's office in downtown, how the air there is permanently citrus and paperwork. Andrew Grace believes in mergers that behave like marriages and in marriages that behave like mergers. For months, he has tried to negotiate her future over lunches with strangers, polite men with careful smiles, good families, right numbers. Hazel, 25, has become a reluctant line item in the Grace Corporation's long-term plan. At the table, two colleagues from an art nonprofit are speaking something about donors and an installation that needs shipping insurance. But the words slide past Hazel like fish in a tank. She nods anyway. She has practiced nodding. When the server brings a tray, Hazel lets a bright drink cool her palm and tells herself it's only for the color. When she sips, the sweetness makes her shoulders drop. When she sips again, the room tilts by a single degree. Nothing dramatic, just a small shiver of gravity, as if the floor has become a boat. Breathe, she tells herself. You are not 18 anymore. This is not the same night. A hand touches her elbow. You okay? It's Mira from the foundation. Hazel recognizes the kind concern in her eyes and performs a soft smile for it. just tired," Hazel says. "I'll head out soon. Want me to call a car?" "No, I'll walk. It's a nice night." It is not a nice night. The air is heavy and marine layered. But the words get her to her feet. As she rises, the lights fuzz a little and the chandelier spins its galaxy slower. The citrus flame blooms again behind the bar, then disappears. Hazel slips into the hallway that leads toward the hotel elevators, a quiet corridor where the noise becomes a memory. She could call her father's driver. She could call her therapist. She could. She knows. Call no one and do the simplest, dangerous thing, keep walking. At the brass-framed elevators, a man in a dark suit steps out, murmuring into an earpiece, and nearly collides with her. He offers an apologetic nod that reveals nothing about him except that he is used to rooms that rearrange themselves for his arrival. The elevator opens like a held breath. She presses the lobby button and leans against the mirrored wall. Her face looks pale and composed, like a person who has trained for composure. The drink is still warm in her hand. She realizes she hasn't set it down. When the doors slide open again, it is not the lobby. It is an identical floor. The corridor repeats itself like a mistake. She tries again, the same thing. Her breath shortens. The hallway is empty, carpet muffling the world to a hush, and the numbers on the doors glow like small moons. She swallows and tells herself it will pass. It always passes. The trick is to keep moving until the fear becomes bored. A door opens down the hall. He steps out, tall, precise, one hand around a folder, the other slipping a watch back onto his wrist. Damien Cole looks like a verdict with a pulse. Hazel does not know him yet. Not really. She knows the press photos, the CEO who turned a floundering private equity firm into a leviathan, the son of a Boston professor and a sculptor, the man everybody swears is colder than winter and somehow still on fire. In person, the fire is quieter. He is the kind of handsome that doesn't preen, the kind that assumes it doesn't matter. He sees a young woman by the elevators, her coat too heavy for a spring night, her eyes a shade too bright. "Are you lost?" he asks, voice low enough to be merciful. Hazel opens her mouth to answer, and the floor moves again just slightly, but enough to make her reach for the wall. The glass of her drink knocks the brass and slips. He catches the falling glass before it shatters. The motion brings him close enough to smell the sweetness on her breath, and something else beneath it, an edge he cannot name, memory or medicine. His eyes flick to the drink, then back to hers. "I'm okay," she says. though the words are far away. Let's get you to the lobby. He presses the button, and the world shrinks to the elevator's mirrored square. They descend. Hazel bites her lip, watching numbers light, one by one. She remembers being 18, a bar not unlike this one. Her twin sister's laugh, the smell of spilled beer and fear, a room that locked from the outside, a face she could not keep. She shakes her head as if memory were a thing that dusted off clean. In the lobby, the light is brighter. The night air slips in every time the revolving door turns. The concierge looks up, ready to help. Hazel tells herself to sit, to drink water, to ask for a cab. Instead, the floor tilts again, this time not gentle. The chandelier becomes a constellation, sliding off its string. She hears her name in a voice that is not here. She reaches for the nearest thing, which happens to be Damien's sleeve. He steadies her before she falls. "You need a quiet room," he says. "And water." "I don't," she begins, but the sentence unthreads. Her skin is hot and cold in alternating waves. Someone must have topped my glass, she thinks, and then argues with herself. No, you're tired, you're fine. Her body does not care whose argument wins. The concierge understands something without requiring details. A key appears. A room is found. Damien unlocks a suite on a mezzanine level and opens the lights one pool at a time. Entry, lounge, bedroom. The air smells like lemon and starch. He sets the glass far from reach and brings her a bottle of water and a cool towel. Hazel sinks onto the edge of the bed, the coat a black shoreline around her. "Drink slowly," he says. She does. The water is a rope thrown into a deep place. She holds it. The panic edges back. Offended. Breath returns as a series of small victories. Damien says nothing more. Silence. Here is a kindness. "Thank you," Hazel says finally. "I think someone..." The drink tasted. She stops. She does not want to give the past a name in this room. He nods in a way that means I heard you. I won't pry. Do you want me to call someone? She almost says father, but swallows the word. Andrew would turn this into a ledger risk, liability, damage control. He would come with security, leave with opinions. He would remind her carefully, professionally, that Saturday is lunch with a man she ought to consider seriously. "No," she says, "just stay a minute." He glances at his watch, at the folder he set on the desk, then back at the young woman balancing on the edge between present and past. "A minute," he repeats, and takes the chair by the window, outside. The Pacific is only an idea. The night could be any night on any coast. Hazel closes her eyes. When she opens them, the room has settled. The dizziness loosens its fist. She stands, misjudges the floor by an inch, and her hand brushes his shoulder. The contact is small and undecorated. A human proof. I think I can manage, she says. Quieter. I should go. He stands too. You don't have to prove anything tonight. She almost laughs, because proving is the only language she was taught. If I start resting now, it'll become a habit. He says nothing. She can feel him not saying it. She slips her arms into the black coat. When she reaches the door, she hesitates, then turns back with that reckless courage of the already tired. I'm Hazel, she says. Damien, he answers. The names hang like two notes in a narrow room. Then she's in the corridor, then the elevator, then the night, where the air tastes like salt and taxis. Saturday is not a nice day either, but it's dressed as one blue sky, palms like ink strokes. Hazel sits across from her father at a private club where the salads have biographies. Andrew Grace looks immaculate in navy. His opinions arrive on schedule. There's a third chair. It belongs to the man she is supposed to meet. He's exactly your type, Andrew says, which is funny because her type is extinction-level mistakes. Serious, principled, a partner. Hazel stirs an iced tea she doesn't want. A partner in what? My life or your firm? In building something that lasts, he says, which is his way of saying both. The third chair remains empty for 10 minutes, then 12. Andrew checks his watch and frowns. A rare crack in a face designed for boardrooms. Hazel thinks of excuses she could accept on behalf of a stranger, an emergency landing, a sick mother, a sudden crisis in a portfolio company. When the maitre d' finally approaches, he is all regret. Mr. Cole sends his apologies. He's been delayed. His office suggests rescheduling. Mr. Cole? Hazel recognizes the name like a chord struck somewhere near her sternum. She tries to keep her face a still lake. Across from her, Andrew's disappointment is tidily folded and placed on the table. That's unlike him, he says, not to Hazel, but to history. We'll rearrange. On the sidewalk after lunch, the sun is too honest. Hazel slips on sunglasses and lets her father's words become weather. You can't keep refusing to meet people, he says, and then be furious when solitude behaves like itself. I don't need you to marry a spreadsheet. I just need you to stop mistaking rebellion for freedom. She wants to tell him that freedom, for her, is simply a room with an unlocked door. She says nothing. The driver pulls up. Andrew touches her shoulder as if to say we are both trying and neither of us knows how to show it. That evening, Hazel receives a message from an unknown number. My apologies for this afternoon. I can meet tomorrow. Same time, if you're willing. D. C. She stares at the initials and hears again the quiet voice in the hotel room. She types, sure, then deletes it. Types, fine, deletes that too. And finally writes, tomorrow works. Please don't make me wait with my father again. She adds a period, because periods are polite, even when they aren't. The reply is quick. Understood. The Sunday crowd at the club is looser, the laughter rounder. Hazel arrives early to prevent the choreography of being awaited. She picks a corner table, orders coffee, and tells herself this is just another business-like introduction dressed as brunch. At 11:10, a shadow shifts across the tablecloth and a voice says quietly, Hazel. He is as she remembers winter and fire, careful and unadorned. No folder this time, no watch being clasped on. He sits with an economy of movement that suggests he has quit wasting any he doesn't need. You're Mr. Cole, she says, and is surprised by the small current that moves through her when she says it. I am, he answers, then adds, and I believe I failed you yesterday. She tilts her head. You didn't fail me. You inconvenienced a schedule. That's a kind of failure in my world. Maybe your world should apologize to itself. Then, she says, and the smallest smile is permitted to live between them. They talk. It is not flirtation. Exactly. It is two people trying to translate themselves into a language that can be spoken at a table with flowers. He asks about her work with the Art Foundation, and she watches him listen the way people do, only when they intend to remember. She asks about his firm, and he describes value without once using the word disrupt. He does not mention the hotel room. She does not either. There are things that belong to silence because silence kept them alive. Half an hour later, Andrew arrives late, like a man punished by his own punctuality. He takes in the scene with brisk surprise his daughter and Damien Cole already seated, as if they were the ones deciding whether to interview him. Well, Andrew says, recovering. It seems introductions introduce themselves. Damien stands, shakes his hand, chooses courtesy without performance. Hazel watches them measure each other like architects regarding a bridge from opposite banks. When the waiter leaves with their orders, Andrew turns his attention to the future, the way surgeons turn toward organs. I have a proposition that serves all parties, he says, and Hazel feels a familiar tightening in her chest, the one that precedes plans made in rooms she didn't choose. But Damien is already shaking his head, respectful, firm. Mr. Grace, with respect, I didn't come to negotiate a partnership today. Andrew's eyebrows lift by half an inch. No, I came to ask your daughter if she would allow me to see her without the argument of business in the room. The sentence is simple and not simple. Hazel feels the shock of it, the way one feels the first cold wave, not unpleasant, just irrevocable. Andrew studies them both and decides, for a rare moment, to let the tide do what it will. I see, he says, which means he both does and doesn't. Well then, I have another meeting. Try not to make me regret my unusual restraint. When he leaves, the table feels larger. Hazel looks down at her hands, then up at Damien, and hears herself say something reckless. Would you be my pretend boyfriend? It takes him a second to believe she's not joking. Pretend, just for a while, she says, to get my father to stop arranging lunches with men who behave like resumes. No business strings, no actual obligation. You're very persuasive in a room, and you, he says, are very direct in one. It's not romantic, she says quickly, as if to rescue them both from a cliff. It's transactional theater. You know how to do theater. I know how to stand still and look convinced. We let it wither gracefully in a month, and everyone moves on. He studies her a calm, contained appraisal, then glances out the window as if the answer might be written on the street in cab lights. Why me? He asks finally. Because you saw me when I was not performing, she thinks. Because you didn't ask for a story I couldn't tell. Because you have a winter that looks like my winter. And it didn't scare me. Instead, she says lightly, because you already missed one appointment with my father, he'll forgive it faster if he suspects we were busy falling for each other. A ghost of a smile crosses his mouth. And is that the story you want him to believe? It's the story he deserves for trying to cast me without an audition. Silence. Then, the kind that tests both people at once. All right, Damien says. The words land like stakes in the ground. A month. We set terms. Terms, she repeats, and the relief is dizzying. She fixes it by being ruthless with rules. No overnight stays. No gifts that look like ownership. If either of us wants to stop, we say the word sane and the play ends. Sane, he echoes, and no public displays unless necessary to sell the illusion. No press arranged without mutual consent. No surprises I can't clean up. Do you often clean up surprises? Often enough to know they stain. He says, they shake on it. His hand is warm and steady. For an instant, her chest hurts the way old wounds do when the weather changes. The club door opens and a wave of new voices rolls in. Damien glances over Hazel's shoulder and goes still, just slightly. Hazel turns to see what has been written on his face. Walking toward them is a woman with a laugh like a remembered summer. She is taller than Hazel, dressed in cream, and the light bothers to follow her. Something in her profile pulls at Hazel with a startling familiarity, a déjà vu from photographs she has never taken. The woman sees Damien, and her step falters, and then completes itself, Damien. She says, surprised into softness, Olivia. He answers, and the name changes the temperature of the table. Hazel feels the tiniest recoil inside herself, some reflex that belongs to a younger version of her who has learned to duck when history enters a room. She offers a polite smile. Olivia nods back with that social grace reserved for women who know how to look both at and through someone at once. I didn't know you were back in Léger, Damien says. Just for a week. Olivia answers, my husband's conference. She lifts her left hand enough to let the diamond say hello to the afternoon. It's good to see you. You too, he says, carefully neutral. Olivia turns to Hazel. I'm sorry we've met. Not yet, Hazel says. I'm Hazel. Hazel, Olivia repeats, tasting the syllables like a flavor she's trying to place. Something troubled and unnameable passes through her eyes. Then the social machinery resumes. We'll have a lovely lunch. She glides away, leaving behind a fragrance and an old architecture of feeling. Damien remains looking at the door a breath too long, then returns to the present like a man surfacing from a dive. I should tell you, he says, voice quieter, that she was someone I loved once. I don't anymore, but ghosts don't care what your current address is. Hazel studies the light on the tablecloth and says gently, I don't need a dossier on your past, Damien, only that it doesn't come into our play as an uninvited understudy. It won't, he says. She believes him, not because people are reliable, but because his restraint is. And yet the echo remains Olivia, a name that wears his face differently. Hazel sips water and finds her breath again. After lunch, they step into a sun where everything looks too exposed. The choreography of the next month begins immediately a dinner where they sit a little too close for rumor. A gala where his palm finds the small of her back for cameras and then politely leaves. A quiet night on a balcony where they practice talking without saying anything that would be dangerous if someone overheard. They are good at this. People whose lives have been negotiated learn the moves early. And yet, beneath all the scaffolding, something beside theater begins to take shape. Not love, not yet something like recognition. The soft click of two latches that didn't know they were meant to hold the same door. Then, one evening, the world performs its favorite coincidence. Andrew Grace invites Damien to a private dinner at his home. The purpose, Hazel guesses, is to formalize a collaboration between Cole Enterprises and Grace Corporation that will frighten their competitors and delight their lawyers. Hazel is instructed to make a brief appearance and behave like an adult, which, in Andrew's lexicon, means invisible and flawless. She dresses in a simple black dress that looks like a decision. The Grace home is glass and stone and old photographs stolen from time. The dining room is a cathedral for 12. Halfway through the first course, Andrew says, entirely too casually, "Hazel, I don't believe you've been formally introduced to Damien." She almost laughs. The room tilts by a single historical degree. Damien, unreadable, glances at her father as if to check whether he's serious. Hazel is the first to recover. "We've met," she says, the words smooth and utterly true. She turns to Damien and lets their script slip. He's terrible at being late. A rare, almost private warmth touches Damien's mouth. "I'm improving." Andrew watches them both, then shakes his head in a tiny, astonished gesture. A man seeing a chessboard he thought he designed make a move on its own. Dessert has not been served, and already the balance of the room has shifted. Somewhere inside, the past nudges the present and whispers, "So this is the door we're choosing." Later, when the guests are gone and the staff clears the echoes, Hazel stands in the garden where the city is a glittering rumor beyond the hedges. Damien joins her with 2 glasses of water. The night is cool enough to be merciful. "This is where you grew up," he says, not as a question, but as a way of saying he sees the child, the housemaid. "Mostly," she answers. "Sometimes I grew up in hotel lobbies and boardrooms. My father believes childhood is a preface, not a book. And you, I believe the preface keeps rewriting the chapters unless you edit it." His eyes soften. "How's the editing going?" "Clumsy," she admits, and then does not plan the next sentence at all. "When I was 18, something happened at a bar. I don't tell that story often. I'm not telling it now, but I need you to know that sometimes my body reminds me before my mind does. If you see me disappear for a minute, I'm not leaving. I'm just finding the door again." He does not reach for her. He does not crowd the silence with remedies. "Thank you for telling me," he says. "If there's a door you need me to stand by, I'll stand." A breath she didn't know she was holding unhooks itself. "That's more than most have offered. Most don't know how," he says. "They try to fix the locked door instead of being the hallway." She lets out a small, unexpected laugh. "Be the hallway. It's less poetic than it sounded in my head," he admits, and she watches the rare lightness move through him like weather. When he walks her to the car, their hands brush and do not flee. It is nothing, and also not nothing. In the rearview mirror, the house looks like a museum everyone forgot to leave. There are nights in every life when the world is only a list of exits, and you pick one because standing still feels like drowning. There are mornings after when you learn that the door you chose writes a chapter you didn't mean to begin. Hazel doesn't yet know which night this is. She only knows that a stranger carried her through a small storm without asking for the map, and that now the ocean inside her calms a fraction faster when he speaks. Damien doesn't yet know why his restraint bends in her direction, only that something of his winter thaws in rooms where she remembers to breathe. He has lived long enough among sharp people to be suspicious of softness. Softness, he has learned, is often a blade with better manners. But this is not softness. This is thread. He can feel it between them, thin, strong, refusing to break at the first pull. The month begins with an agreement to pretend. It will not end that way. But for now, in the gentle detritus of the first act, there is only this simple, stubborn truth. Two people have chosen not to leave the room when the noise gets loud, and that choice, in lives like theirs, is the first quiet miracle. Damien's penthouse sits above the sleepless parts of the city, all glass and quiet, like a secret kept by the skyline itself. When Hazel moves in, it feels less like moving into a home and more like stepping into a truce. She brings 2 suitcases, one with clothes, another with the kind of ghosts that don't fold. He gives her the spare room, a space designed for guests, unused for years. Its walls smell faintly of cedar and rain. The window faces west, toward the ocean she cannot quite see, but can already hear. There are no rules spoken aloud, but they both understand the choreography. Breakfasts are shared when convenient. Work comes first. Pretend only when the world is watching. And yet, the world is always watching people like them. So the pretending seeps into mornings. It lingers in coffee cups left beside the same newspaper. It hums in the distance between 2 toothbrushes resting like uneasy allies on the same marble sink. Hazel learns Damien's silences before she learns his habits. He doesn't fill rooms with sound. He occupies them with presence. He reads news on his tablet, but rarely reacts. When he speaks, his voice has the measured weight of someone used to being listened to. Sometimes she wonders what silence feels like to a man who controls so much noise. One morning, she wakes earlier than him and walks barefoot across the cold floor to the balcony. The city below still dreams. 1,000 windows glow like memories that refuse to die. She watches the clouds gather, and for the first time in a long while, She doesn't feel the need to run from her own thoughts. Behind her, a voice says softly, "Couldn't sleep." She turns. Damien stands by the doorway, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, eyes still fogged with half sleep. "I don't really do sleep," Hazel answers, just long pauses between thoughts. He nods as if that's the most reasonable thing he's ever heard. Then, after a beat, I make coffee that forgives a lot of things. She smiles small, real, show me. Over the next few weeks, the world believes their performance wholeheartedly. Photos surface Hazel in a silver gown beside Damien at a charity gala, his hand resting lightly on her back, her smile framed like proof. Magazines whisper engaged. Reporters call her the elusive daughter of Andrew Grace and describe Damien as a man who finally found his heart. The irony, Hazel thinks, is that the press is often right for the wrong reasons, because somewhere between the scripted touches and rehearsed glances, she feels something unscripted begin to live, a quiet affection that doesn't ask to be named, a warmth that doesn't demand to be declared. It begins in the small things, the way he lowers his voice when she's anxious, the way she leaves the light on when he works too late. The shared silence that somehow feels like conversation. They are two people who have spent their lives negotiating with fathers, with pain, with expectations, and yet, here, in this strange peace, they forget to negotiate what matters most, how easily one can start to care. One night, Damien returns from a meeting long after midnight. The city is asleep. Hazel sits on the couch with a book she hasn't read a page of. "You waited," he says. "I tried not to," she replies. "It didn't work." He sits beside her, loosens his tie. "You don't owe me your waiting, and you don't owe me explanations," she says. But we both keep giving them anyway. He looks at her, then really looks. There's a moment so still the air seems to listen. His fingers brush her wrist as he reaches for the glass of water beside her. The touch is nothing, almost accidental, but it's also everything. Hazel's breath catches. She wants to tell him, "Don't do this," because she knows how fragile her body becomes when it remembers what closeness once cost her. But she also wants to say, "Please don't stop." Instead, she says nothing. He sets down the glass. The silence between them is no longer empty. It hums. When he finally speaks, it's quiet enough to sound like truth. "You make this place feel less like altitude." Altitude. He smiles. Faint. Up here, people forget the ground exists. She looks at him, the tired eyes, the guarded jaw, and says softly, "I've been living without ground for years. Maybe that's why I found you in the sky. Neither of them moves. Outside, a siren passes a sound that could be grief or grace. A song. The next morning, Hazel finds a framed photo on a shelf she hadn't noticed before. A woman laughing beside a white piano, her hair light brown, her smile familiar in a way that makes Hazel's stomach tighten. Who is she? Hazel asks when Damien walks in. He pauses. Olivia, he says, someone I used to know. She looks like me. He studies the picture, then her. Yes, she does. And you kept it. I thought I'd thrown it away. Some ghosts survive housekeeping. Hazel sets the frame down gently. Do you still love her? He exhales. No, but sometimes memory loves us without permission. She nods, but the sentence lingers like perfume. That night, she dreams of mirrors. In each reflection, it isn't herself she sees, it's Olivia, turning to face her with Hazel's eyes. When she wakes, her hands are trembling. She finds Damien on the balcony, smoking against the city's dawn. Without asking, she takes the cigarette from his fingers, drops it into the ashtray, and says, "Don't feed what already burns." He looks at her, startled, then laughs once, not mockery, just recognition. I didn't think you smoked. I don't, she says. I just don't like watching you disappear into smoke. He nods slowly. Then I'll stop. It's such a small promise, but it lands heavy. Because in a world built on performance, even small honesty feels like devotion. Weeks fold into each other. Pretend begins to feel like muscle memory. They attend events, smile for cameras, answer questions with practiced grace. But when the lights go out, they are two people learning what silence can forgive. One night, a thunderstorm rolls across the coast. Hazel wakes to the sound of rain against glass, soft at first. Then wild, she walks to the living room. The city lights flicker through the downpour like nervous stars. Damien is there, standing by the window, watching the storm the way some people watch fire. Can't sleep, she asks. Lightning keeps finding new ways to surprise me. Maybe that's what storms are for, reminding us we're small. He glances at her. You hate feeling small. Only when someone else makes me. He smiles. Then what makes you feel safe? She hesitates, then says quietly, when someone just stays. He looks at her for a long moment. Then, without speaking, he walks closer, not fast, not slow, just close enough that the air between them becomes one breath shared. The lightning flashes, and for a heartbeat, their shadows merge on the glass, one outline, trembling in white light. Hazel feels her pulse stutter. "I don't want to ruin what we've built," she whispers. "And what have we built? Something I can stand inside without breaking." He reaches up, fingers brushing her jawline, tentative. "You think this is pretend?" he murmurs. Her eyes close. "I don't know anymore." Outside, thunder answers for them, deep, distant, inevitable. He leans in, not enough to kiss her, but enough that if she moved half an inch, it would happen, but she doesn't. She can't. Because just then, somewhere behind her ribs, a voice from another lifetime whispers, "You should have run." She steps back. "Good night, Damien." He nods, jaw tight, as if restraint is the only language he still speaks fluently. "Good night, Hazel." She walks to her room and closes the door. On the other side, she leans against it, shaking, not from fear, from the unbearable tenderness of almost. The hardest part of healing is learning that safety and love are not always the same place. Hazel wants to believe she can have both, but her body remembers differently. Damien wants to protect her, but protection is the wrong gift for someone who spent half her life behind locks. So they orbit each other like two stars, too aware of gravity drawn, but cautious, afraid of collapse. Yet every time she walks past him, some invisible thread hums. Every time he hears her laugh, something inside him remembers what warmth used to feel like. Neither of them calls it love, not yet, but both know that pretending is starting to taste too real to swallow easily. And somewhere, beneath all the careful silence, the story that began as an act begins to believe in itself. There are stories you only learn to say aloud after you've already survived them. And even then, the words come like visitors who keep their coats on. Hazel knows this. She knows the weight and the weather of unsaid things. She has carried them across years like a house on her back. The third month in Damien's penthouse begins with rain and ends with a decision. She will not outrun the hallway in her head anymore. She will find the door, name it, and open it without fainting. She will bring light, not because light is brave, she tells herself, but because darkness is exhausted. Damien doesn't hurry her. He learns the names of her pauses and treats them like fragile animals. In return, she lets him see the map she drew alone the way out, the way back, the warning signs when the sky inside her turns black. It is not romance. It is infrastructure. One morning, she holds a card with an address on it. Dr. Kavya Patel, trauma therapy. She sits in a room the color of quiet and puts her hands on her knees like a student in a class about herself. When I was 18, she says, and startles at the sound of her own voice. Then the rest arrives like rain. The memory doesn't return as film. Film would be merciful. It arrives as fragments, the stickiness of the bar floor, the neon pink of a sign reflected in a puddle. Her sister's laugh darting through the crowd like a bird you can't keep. Hazel remembers a man's watch face catching light. She remembers a cologne too sharp for a college night, citrus sliced with money. She remembers the room that locked from the outside. Two men doctor her, Patel asks, soft as gauze. Two, Hazel says, and a woman later. A woman, not then, Hazel whispers, and a tremor runs under the words, later. They had not planned a third body in the story, but trauma loves to edit. Hazel remembers the car door shutting like a sentence. She remembers the alley that didn't end, the way her sister's hand crushed hers and then suddenly didn't. She remembers the taste of fear metal and childhood. She remembers seeing her own reflection in a window and not recognizing the girl looking back. What do you wish you had done differently, doctor? Patel asks. I wish I had asked for help when I still had a voice. Hazel says, but that's how it works. Shame steals the first word and the last, doctor. Patel doesn't argue. She just nods like a lighthouse. After the session, Hazel stands in the daylight and the world looks like something she has earned. She texts Damien one sentence. I told it. He answers with two. I'm proud of you. Balcony. Tonight. While Hazel pulls thread from the old tapestry, Damien follows threads in the world that does not forgive. He does it quietly, the way he does everything that matters. He calls Lucas Ward, the former federal investigator who now leads Cole Enterprises security. Lucas has a face like a door no one can kick in and a file cabinet memory. Damien gives him 3 facts, the bar's name back then, the Lantern Room on Fairfax, the month and year, the rumor of police records sealed at the request of concerned families. He doesn't give Hazel's name. He doesn't have to. He gives his own. Lucas returns with what silence wouldn't. The Lantern Room's cameras malfunctioned that night. The server was replaced 2 days later. The owner's books show a surge of cash deposits afterward, and a donation from a shell company, Vale Holdings, LLC, to a neighborhood improvement fund that never improved anything. The parking ticket system logs a white SUV idling in the alley behind the bar for 40 minutes. The plate is traced to a rental paid with a corporate card. The card belongs to Vale Capital. Damien closes his eyes when he hears the name. It arrives with the sharpness of cologne, citrus, and money. Bianca Val, heir apparent and socialite, has thrown glassier parties than the lantern. But the family's quiet businesses like to live in alleyways and back doors. Ethan Vale, her younger brother, has a reputation that wears gloves clean in photographs, filthy underneath. Lucas keeps going. The bartender that night, a woman named Alma Reyes, left town a month later. She's in San Diego now, running a diner that smells like eggs and mercy. She might talk to the right person. Lucas says she filed no report, but she saved a note. He texts Damien a photo. It's a bar napkin, well preserved. Ink bled at the edges, signet ring, V crest, left hand, scar at wrist, a ring, a family letter, a scar. Damien's mind does what it was built to do. Line evidence up like soldiers and see which one blinks. He thinks of Ethan Vale's wrist, a thin, white line he's seen in press photos when the cuff rides up. Sailing accident. Ethan once told a reporter with a smile too rehearsed. Don't move on Alma Reyes yet. Damien tells Lucas, I want to talk to Hazel first. He does not want to be the man who drags a ghost into the room without asking whether the living can bear it. Hazel finds her father in his study that evening, the city thrown like a jeweled map across the window. Andrew Grace signs something expensive, looks up, and studies his daughter like she might be an acquisition he cannot afford to misunderstand. I'm seeing Dr. Patel, she says, and watches relief move through his face so fast it looks like grief. I should have taken you sooner, he replies. Reflex and confession in one. You tried, she says, just not in the language I could hear. He places his pen down. The study quiet is not unkind tonight. They are files, he says, surprising them both. From that year, I kept copies when the police sealed the case. I told myself I was protecting you. Maybe I was protecting myself from admitting that money had more doors than justice did. Hazel breathes. She hadn't expected this admission to come wearing humility. Why was it sealed? Because the families involved were the kind who think tragedy is a PR problem. Andrew says, bitterness chewed small. Because threatening letters arrived. Because I could keep you alive, or I could keep you righteous. And I chose alive. I'm not proud of the compromise, but I'd make it again. Hazel feels something complicated soften. I wish you'd told me what you were carrying. I didn't know how to put that weight into a sentence. He says, by the time I learned, the sentence had turned into a wall. He opens a safe, removes a folder thicker than time, and sets it between them. Photos, reports, a copied page of a police log with blacked out names, a blurred still from a camera across the street, a white SUV, an alley door, 2 men like shadows, 2 girls like light. Hazel's hands shake. She places her palm flat until the table steadies under it. I want Damien to see this, she says. Andrew nods once, of course. Then, almost under his breath, as if embarrassed by love, "Are you all right with him?" She thinks about balconies and coffee and a cigarette turned to ash. She thinks about a near kiss that trembled and then survived not happening. "I think I'm safer than I've ever been," she says, which scares me in a different way. Andrew almost smiles. "The right kind of fear," he says. And for once, neither of them needs to translate. They meet Alma Reyes on a Tuesday when the sky can't decide if it wants to weep. The diner bell gives a hopeful ring as they enter. Alma looks up from a plate of pancakes meant for a boy who can reach across the table without standing. She sees Hazel and sees something older than surveillance and newer than mercy. "I thought one of you would come someday," Alma says, wiping her hands. "Sit." She doesn't ask for money. She doesn't ask for protection either. She asks for names. And when Hazel says hers, Alma nods like a ceremony just completed. "I saw 2 girls," Alma begins. "Happy in the way you are before the world tells you it's a mistake. 2 men followed too easy. I told my manager. He said, 'Don't make trouble with suits.' I followed anyway. I saw the alley, 1 man with a ring, V on it, fancy, like a family that thinks history is something you can wear. He held the door. He had a scar at his wrist. Ethan. The name doesn't need saying to be in the room. And the woman Damien asks, voice, even as a ruler. Alma's eyes go distant. Different car. Not a street girl. Not a savior either. Came later, after the shouting. You know that moment in a storm when there's no wind, and you know the next wind will break something. That was her. Face Hazel asks. Breath thin. Pretty like the magazines make pretty. Alma says. Hair the color of promises. Red nails. Perfume like bitter orange and flowers. Bergamot and neroli. Hazel remembers a smell that night that turned the air into judgment. In photographs. Bianca Vale wears a signet ring designed with the family crest, a V like a blade. She also wears blood-red nails like a costume she forgot to take off. Alma reaches under the counter and brings out the napkin in a small zip bag, the one Lucas texted. I kept this in case Justice wanted a receipt. She says, half smiling, Justice is late a lot. Hazel stares at the ink like a map back to the place she wouldn't let herself name. She wants to say thank you and can't. So she reaches for Alma's hand instead. Fingers warm, ordinary, human. The diner bell rings. Someone laughs. Somewhere in this same city. 11 years ago. a door locked from the outside. Today, an old door opens in a diner that smells like Sunday. Healing has a greedy memory. Once it tastes a piece of truth, it wants the whole meal. 2 days later, Hazel asks Damien to drive her to the alley behind the old lantern room. The bar is gone now. The building houses a yoga studio where people learn to breathe on purpose. They sit in the car with the engine off. The alley is thin, a spine between buildings. Somewhere, a dishwasher empties its lungs. Hazel steps out first. She stands where the white SUV idled. The air still remembers oil. She kneels and touches concrete as if it were a grave. We were laughing. She says, we were stupid. We were young. Which is the same thing sometimes. They asked for directions we didn't have. The room smelled like bleach. Someone said, "Don't make this harder than it is." I thought that was a kind sentence until it wasn't. Her voice falters. Damien's shadow moves closer, then stops, then waits. He has learned the choreography of letting someone be brave without making them perform it on a stage. My sister Hazel says, and the word splits. She tried to speak for both of us. She always did. There was a noise like a door slamming, and then it wasn't a door. It was a gun. It was a hand with red nails, and the smell. She closes her eyes. Her perfume was wrong for a night like that. In the dark behind her lids, the scene assembles with violent clarity. Bianca's profile turning away, as if even she couldn't witness what her hand had done. Hazel opens her eyes. I am not going to be haunted by someone else's vanity anymore. She straightens. Damien steps beside her, not in front. We'll do this right, he says. No rushed revenge, no newspaper theater, evidence, witnesses, a plan. Hazel almost laughs. You're not the man who stands in the hallway, are you? I am, he answers. But I also build doors. Lucas lays everything on Damien's table like a case before a jury. Alma's testimony, the napkin, the rental agreement, the shell company ledger, photos of Ethan Vale's wrist, the scar plain in summer sleeves, Bianca's ring in a charity gala close-up, a surveillance still from a hotel garage the night of the crime, Bianca's coupe arriving 37 minutes after the white SUV. Damien adds what Andrew's file gave them the police log, the sealed warrant request that never found a judge, the statement from a college friend who remembered a girl who didn't come back. Motive. Lucas asks, power. Damien says, practice. When you've spent a life above consequence, violence is a language you suspect you're fluent in. He looks at Hazel, then away, and fear. Something went wrong that night. Ethan thought he could manage it. Bianca arrived believing her family name could stop the rain. When it didn't, she made weather. They build a plan that doesn't rely on theatrics. Alma will give a statement on video with counsel present. The rental agency clerk, now retired in Palm Desert, will confirm company protocols from that year. The Lantern Room's former manager, coaxed by the possibility of immunity, will admit to the payoff and the malfunction. A friendly ADA will unseal what should never have been sealed. But there is one more thing, and it sits between them like a live wire. You think Bianca will run if she smells it, Lucas says. She won't smell it, Damien replies. We'll bring her to us. How Hazel asks. Damien looks like winter and fire again. You said it yourself. People like that mistake theater for truth. He turns to Hazel, gentle and flint at once. We invite the Veils somewhere they can't resist. We give them a stage. We let their arrogance write our evidence. Hazel understands before he says it. A gala, a public truce, an engagement declaration that looks like surrender and is actually bait. The ring Bianca wears meeting the camera's hunger. Ethan's cuff slipping at the bar, wrist bare. The past and present forced into the same frame. She stares at the city in the window. You want me to stand in the room where my sister's ghost can see them? I won't ask if you don't want it, Damien says. We can take the long road without spectacle. Hazel closes her fist around a small, invisible bravery. The long road is how we'll win, she says. But the room, I choose the room. 2 nights later, Olivia appears like a postscript Hazel didn't plan to read. She asks to meet polite, careful, in the hotel bar. The lighting is warm enough to forgive old choices. Olivia's hands are elegant on the glass. Her eyes carry that particular melancholy of people who knew a different version of you. I think Bianca will hurt you if cornered, Olivia says without pleasantries. She's the kind who treats consequences like rumors. You know her? Hazel asks. Girls who grow up in the same picture frames meet each other in rooms we didn't build. Olivia says she used to call what she did solving. She never called it violence. Hazel studies her. Did you love Damien? I loved a man who loved the future more than he loved me, Olivia says, honest in a way only distance buys. It wasn't cruelty. It was momentum. He has rerouted some of that lately. He moves slower where you stand. Hazel feels the compliment land like a fragile bird. Why are you helping me? Because I don't want the world to teach you what it taught me, how to bury your own voice under decorum, Olivia says. And because once, on a bad night, I wished someone had warned me before I walked into a room that had already decided my fate. She slides a small card across the table, a jeweler's contact. Bianca had that signet ring custom altered last year. The V crest was sharpened. The order is traceable. If you can place the ring in the room with you, on camera, the ADA will have more than story. Hazel thanks her. The gratitude feels clean. As she turns to leave, Olivia adds, "He's different with you, not softer, truer. Don't punish him for the parts of himself that kept him alive before you." "I won't," Hazel says. "I intend to meet him where he is and ask him to keep walking." Olivia smiles small, relieved. Then both of you might arrive. The thing about ghosts is they need two things at once, a witness and a boundary. Hazel learns to be both. She gathers witnesses who can finally say what the night did, and she redraws the line across which the night can't step. She is no longer the girl who left with the door locked behind her. She is the woman who returns with keys and a measured fire. Damien learns a different lesson that love, for him, is the discipline of not saving someone in ways that erase them. He stands where she asks, builds what she needs, and waits without sulking when the only proof of progress is that she breathes easier. Together they make a plan that looks, from the outside, like spectacle, and from the inside, like justice arranging its instruments. A gala invitation goes out with a rumor folded into it, an engagement announcement. Cameras will do what cameras do. Rings will be seen. Cuffs will slip. Names will remember to be themselves. In another city, a brother studies his scar in the mirror and tells himself he is still untouchable. In a glass apartment, a woman twists a ring with a sharpened crest and tells herself that truth is a matter of perspective. In a diner that smells like mercy, Alma Reyes sleeps more deeply than she has in years. And in a penthouse above a city that has learned to keep secrets and then, sometimes, to spill them, Hazel and Damien stand on a balcony where the wind is kind. They don't touch. They don't need to. Two lights glow behind them on the kitchen counter, their phones, face down, like well-behaved dogs. The night hums like a held note. "Ready?" he asks. "No," she says, honest as rain, but willing. Sometimes that is the only difference between the past owning you and the future arriving on time. Every storm has a dress code. Tonight's is black tie. The ballroom of the Vanguard Hotel gleams like a lie polished for photographs. Chandeliers dripping crystal. Champagne sighing in flutes. Violins rehearsing the illusion of calm. Outside, Los Angeles holds its breath. Inside, everything that has been buried begins to shift under the floor. Hazel stands before a mirror that doesn't quite believe in honesty. The gown is silver, the shade of new scars. Her hair, pulled back clean, leaves her face unprotected. Damien fixes the last button of his cuff, each movement measured, rehearsed, wholly in its control. Still want to do this? He asks, his voice quiet, respectful of ghosts. She looks at him through the mirror. Want isn't the word, but need. Maybe. Need will do. He hands her the engagement ring, nothing gaudy, just a simple band with a heartbeat of light. She slides it on, feels its small, circular promise, and the weight of everything it means: justice, closure, love that might survive honesty. The veils arrive late, of course. Bianca veil in white silk like innocence rebranded. Ethan at her elbow, charm rehearsed to the decimal. Cameras adore them. They adore themselves in return. Damien greets them with the effortless grace of a man who has shaken hands with devils before breakfast. Bianca, he says, his voice a calm sea. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss the engagement of the year, she replies, eyes flicking to Hazel's ring, smile precise as surgery. Congratulations, dear. You clean up beautifully. Hazel smiles with the kind of serenity that takes practice. Thank you. You too. White looks dangerous on you. Bianca's gaze sharpens, then softens an actress assessing competition. Danger keeps things interesting. They pose for the first photo together. Flash, light. 4 faces immortalized past, present, guilt, grace, all smiling. Somewhere near the orchestra, Lucas and Andrew watch the exchange from a corner balcony. Cameras, microphones, silent witnesses, every exit sealed, every entrance timed. Oh. An hour later, Damien takes the stage. The lights dim, conversations slow. Thank you all for coming, he begins, voice low, commanding without effort. Tonight isn't just about business or celebration. It's about truth, the kind that survives cameras. Murmurs ripple, champagne trembles in glasses. Hazel steps up beside him. The room becomes cathedral still. Her voice, when it comes, is softer than the microphone needs. 11 years ago, my sister was taken from me. Her name was Grace, Hazel Grace. She pauses, and tonight, I say her name out loud so she can stop haunting the silence. A gasp somewhere near the front. Someone sets a glass down too fast. Bianca's face freezes in polite confusion. Darling, are you? But Hazel continues, steady. Some of you remember the lantern room. You remember the papers that said it was an accident, a robbery, a nothing. It wasn't. It was a murder covered in perfume and money. Ethan shifts. A twitch so quick only guilt notices. Damien speaks again. Evidence has surfaced, records, witnesses, the ring that held the crest of Vale Capital, the same ring worn tonight. All eyes turn, cameras flash again, predatory now. Bianca's hand instinctively curls. The ring catches light, the sharpened V, and a dozen lenses immortalize it. Enough, Bianca hisses, voice low, venom threaded with panic. This is slander. Then sue me, Hazel says gently, but take off the ring first. Bianca glances toward Ethan, but he's already paling, hand trembling, cuff slipping up to reveal the thin white scar. A single shutter click captures it. Flash, truth, preserved, security. Lucas's men step forward, calm and professional. The room fills with the sound of polite chaos. Guests whisper, pretend to help, try to appear uninvolved. Bianca's mask fractures. You don't understand. She spits. I was trying to protect the family. He panicked. You killed my sister, Hazel says. Her tone isn't rage. It's heartbreak, finally allowed to breathe. Bianca's voice climbs an octave. She wouldn't stop screaming. The sentence lands like a bullet in the air. Cameras catch it. Silence devours the rest. Two officers in suits, friends of Andrew and the ADA, step forward with quiet authority. Miranda writes, spoken softly, almost mercifully. Bianca Vale and her brother are escorted out through a crowd that pretends not to stare. The violinists have stopped playing. Someone coughs. Hazel feels the world sway, not from fear, but from the gravity of release. Damien steps closer, his hand hovering near her back, not touching, just present. It's over, he whispers. She exhales, and for the first time in years, breath doesn't hurt. But endings rarely behave. Outside, rain begins to fall, a cinematic mercy. Police lights turn the wet pavement into red-blue confessions. Bianca, escorted into the car, twists free for a heartbeat, shoves the officer, snatches the gun from his holster. Everything slows. Hazel, still on the hotel steps, sees it before anyone else, the gun rising, the scream that follows. Damien moves before thinking, body instinct, heart, suicide. The shot cracks the air open. He falls. Hazel runs, heels forgotten, knees tearing against stone. Damien blood blooms on white shirt, red black against silver rain. She presses her hands to the wound, whispering nonsense, prayers. Love everything the soul keeps for emergencies. Stay with me, she says, voice breaking. Stay. He opens his eyes, rain collecting on lashes. You called me back, he murmurs. Don't talk. Had to hear you say my name once more. I'll say it forever. She sobs. The paramedics arrive in minutes that feel like years. Andrew kneels beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. Lucas directs chaos like a conductor. Bianca is restrained, silent now, mascara bleeding like confession. When they lift Damien onto the stretcher, Hazel's hand never leaves his. He squeezes once barely, but enough. Hospitals smell like surrender. White walls, white sheets, white time. For 2 days, Hazel doesn't leave the chair outside his ICU room. She counts the beeps like rosary beads. She dreams standing up. She prays without religion. Andrew brings her food she forgets to eat. Doctor. Patel visits once, sits quietly beside her. No therapy, just human presence. He'll come back, Hazel says. Not to anyone. He has to. You believe in miracles now, Andrew asks gently. I believe in fairness, she says, and I think the world owes me one. On the third night, the monitor stutters. A breath catches in her chest. Then, slowly, he opens his eyes. Hey, Damien whispers, voice rough as gravel and grace. Hazel laughs and cries at once. You're terrible at dying. I promised to stand by the door, he murmurs. Guess I couldn't if I left. She bends and kisses his forehead. You're home, she whispers. Home, he repeats, as if learning the word for the first time. Weeks later, sunlight has the courage to visit again. Damien recovers slowly, Hazel faster, but only because grief has taught her how to rebuild on ashes. They sit on the same balcony where it all began. The city hums below, obedient, almost kind. He looks at her, eyes soft and raw. I never wanted to fall in love with someone broken. She smiles faintly. Then it's good you didn't. You fell for someone who rebuilt herself. He nods. I wanted to save you, but you didn't need saving. No, she says. Just someone to stand beside the door. They laugh quietly, the way survivors do when words are finally lighter. After a while, he asks, do you think your sister would forgive me for surviving when she didn't? Hazel turns her face toward the ocean. She'd say it wasn't your fault, and she'd tell you to keep me alive. Consider it done, he says, hand finding hers. Their fingers intertwine, not desperate, not fragile, just certain Some stories end in flames, others end in what's left after the smoke learns to breathe again. The world calls it a tragedy with a happy ending. But Hazel knows better. It's not happiness, it's peace. And peace is rarer. The Vale family falls like a kingdom undone by arrogance. Justice arrives, late but real. Alma Reyes testifies. The city listens. For once, the headlines don't lie. Damien resigns from his position, sells his shares, and donates a fund under Grace's name to help survivors of violence find voices again. Hazel continues therapy, opens an art space called the Lantern Reborn, where walls are painted with color instead of silence. Sometimes, late at night, they sit together and talk about nothing. Sometimes, that nothing feels like everything. Do you ever miss who we were before all this? She asks once. Only when I forget how to be grateful, he says. Hazel smiles, eyes closing. The night is gentle, for once, outside. The wind carries the scent of rain that doesn't threaten anymore. Inside, two hearts rest not fixed, not perfect, but awake. Hospitals are strange places for rebirth. They are full of machines that whisper about survival and walls that have seen too much of both love and leaving. But in room 1403 of St. Helena's, sunlight finally dares to stay. Hazel sits by the window, a sketchbook open on her lap, her pencil moving like it's remembering how to trust paper again. Damien is asleep on the bed behind her, chest rising in a slow, unhurried rhythm that sounds like peace rehearsing itself. Outside, the jacarandas are blooming purple, defiant, soft. Spring has arrived, like forgiveness that doesn't need to be announced. When he stirs, she turns. His smile is quiet, the kind that belongs to mornings after nightmares have learned they're no longer welcome. How long was I gone, he asks. Long enough to make me read every terrible hospital brochure in this city, she says. He laughs small, but real. I didn't miss your sarcasm. You missed everything, she answers, leaning closer. But that's fine. You're here now. There's no music, no cinematic crescendo, just the ordinary miracle of breathing the same air again. Weeks pass. The world continues its strange habit of spinning even after breaking. Hazel and Damien leave the hospital. The cameras follow for a while, then grow bored. News cycles prefer fresh wounds to healed ones. The Vale siblings stand trial. Bianca sits in court like marble that refuses to admit it has cracked. Ethan pleads guilty to accessory, Bianca to manslaughter. though the lawyers try to rename it something prettier. Hazel doesn't attend every hearing. She goes to one the last. She listens, not for vengeance, but for punctuation. When Bianca's sentence is read, the courtroom exhales. Hazel does not. Later, she stands outside in the cold. Dr. Patel joins her. "You expected more, no?" Hazel says. "I expected nothing." That's what justice feels like most days. Nothing and everything at once. Dr. Patel nods. "Then write the ending yourself." So she does. She writes a letter not to Bianca, but to Grace, her sister. She doesn't seal it, doesn't send it. She leaves it at the ocean. "I found them, Grace. I found the names and the faces. But what I found more than anything was the part of me that stopped screaming the day you did. I've learned to make art out of the quiet you left. I still hear you in thunder. I still forgive you for dying before I was ready to live." She folds the paper, lets the wind take it. It vanishes upward, not out to sea, but into the kind of sky that feels inhabited. 6 months later, a new building opens downtown, white walls, wide windows, sunlight spilling like mercy. The sign reads, "The Lantern Reborn." Inside, canvases painted by survivors, sculptures built from discarded metal, poetry etched into glass. Every piece tells the story of someone who refused to end where pain tried to stop them. Hazel calls it a home for voices that lost their echo. On opening night, the crowd is small but present. Dr. Patel gives a short speech. Andrew Grace stands in the back, proud in his quiet way. Lucas brings his wife and 2 kids, both clutching free balloons. Damien stands beside Hazel, hand light on hers. He still walks slower now, scar tissue under his shirt, gratitude under his skin. When reporters ask what inspired the gallery, Hazel answers simply, "A girl who wanted to turn darkness into daylight." Later, when the crowd thins, she switches off the main lights. The building glows from the inside out. Each artwork carries a small candle behind glass. Together, they look like constellations rearranged by forgiveness. Damien watches her. "You did it," he says. She shakes her head. "We did. You built the doors. Remember," he smiles, "and you filled the rooms." Kan ishkon in an autumn comes again, golden and kind. There's a small ceremony in a garden by the coast. No sponsors, no headlines, no photographers, just a few chairs. A sea that claps softly, and a piano that knows when to be silent. Hazel wears ivory, Damien, gray. Andrew walks her halfway down the aisle, then stops, as if realizing she's already been walking alone for years. He kisses her forehead and whispers, "This time, you choose everything." The officiant reads something simple. Hazel and Damien exchange vows they wrote themselves. Damien's voice shakes once, then steadies. "You taught me that love isn't rescue, it's recognition. You showed me that survival isn't the opposite of living, it's the doorway to it. I don't promise to protect you from storms. I promise to walk beside you through them." Hazel answers, her voice trembling like light on water. "You found me in a world that only understood performance. You waited for me to remember how to speak without pretending. I don't promise perfection. I promise presence." And when silence visits, we'll let it stay as long as it needs. They exchange rings simple, unadorned. When they kiss, it isn't cinematic, it's real. The kind of kiss that says we made it here, somehow. The wind carries applause from the sea. Evening finds them back at their apartment, candles flickering on the balcony, 2 glasses of wine half empty. The city hums below, no longer threatening, just alive. "Do you ever think we'll stop being haunted?" Damien asks. Hazel leans against his shoulder. "No. But haunting can be gentle when it learns your name." He nods. "And what's next for us?" "Living," she says simply. "The boring, beautiful kind. Waking up, watering plants, burning toast, saying sorry before coffee, letting time be ordinary again." He smiles. "I can live with that." They sit in silence, watching the horizon melt into navy. The world, for once, doesn't demand an ending, it allows them a beginning. A year later, Hazel finishes a painting she's been working on since the night Damien was shot. It's massive 7 feet of canvas layers of shadow and gold. Up close, it looks chaotic brushstrokes, scars, collisions of color, but from a distance, it forms a single image, 2 figures standing in rain, holding hands, faces tilted toward light that isn't there yet, but coming. She titles it "The Taste of Life." At the gallery's anniversary, she unveils it quietly. People stop, look, fall silent. Some cry. Doctor. Patel calls it grief, translated into sunlight. When the night ends, Hazel walks outside. Damien waits by the car, his hands in pockets. The ocean behind him. "How does it feel?" he asks. like finally swallowing something I've been choking on for years, she says, and realizing it tastes like peace. The story doesn't end where it began. It ends where pain becomes memory, and memory becomes meaning. Hazel once thought healing would feel like forgetting, but now she knows it's remembering without breaking. She still dreams of her sister. Sometimes, in those dreams, Grace is older, smiling, saying, "You made it." Sometimes she's painting beside Hazel. Sometimes she's just light. Damien, too, has his ghosts, but they've learned to sit quietly at the table instead of rattling the plates. He works again, slowly, differently, no longer building empires, just building days worth living. Together, they fill their home with small, unimportant things, plants that refuse to die, mugs that don't match, mornings that arrive on time. It's not perfection, it's peace disguised as routine. And that, Hazel thinks, is enough. Ging und